Hello everybody and welcome to this final video in our series of exploring Theme 4's 4.1. This is going to talk you through 4.1.9, which is all about a topic we call international competitiveness. Right, now anyway, this is a topic that we've mentioned time and time again across themes 1 and 2, but also what we've done so far in theme 4 as well. The word competitiveness comes up time and time again across the economic specification. So what I would like to do is to try and write down what your current understanding of this topic actually is. So can you jot down these 4 different questions, please? So A, what do you think international competitiveness actually is? B, how do you think we would measure our international competitiveness? C, how do you think our economy could become more internationally competitive? So you might put down some examples of supply side policies and why they should make our economy more competitive across the world. And then D, what are the benefits for an economy of being internationally competitive? So guys, if you can all write down your answers, hit pause now. And once you've put down your answers, hit play again, and we'll start exploring this theory in a bit more detail. Right, welcome back. So international competitiveness then. Now, let's start off by putting this definition down. International competitiveness is the measure of a country's advantage or disadvantage in selling its products in international markets. Now, what would indicate whether an economy is competitive or not would be to think about their trade performance. If an economy has got a trade surplus, then this would indicate that economy has got good levels of international competitiveness. It means there's a high demand for that country's exports across the world relative to its imports. So foreign people are buying high quantities of that economy's goods and services, but also domestically, people within that economy are favouring domestic goods in many ways over foreign goods and services. Now, clearly, if you've got a trade deficit, it would indicate that you lack international competitiveness. It means that domestic people buy high numbers of foreign goods and services. So they maybe have got preferences for foreign goods and services over domestic goods and services. But it also means across the world, foreign people are having a low demand for that country's goods and services. Now we can look at competitiveness in a couple of different ways: price competition and non-price competition. Now, price competition is where one economy can sell a good or a service at a lower price than what another economy can do. And assuming that the quality is comparable to other goods and services, there'll be a high demand for that particular good or service. So, for example, when we looked at Bangladesh, we said that Bangladesh have got a thriving textile industry. We're not necessarily saying that Bangladeshi clothes are any better than those produced in other countries across the world, but they can produce them cheaper. So low wage rates in Bangladesh means they can produce textiles cheaper than what you could do in the UK. So that would mean in Britain we would demand high volumes of Bangladeshi clothes into our economy. But we can also think about competition in terms of non-price competition. So if you look at an economy like Germany with a trade surplus, well, they excel in export markets because their goods are deemed to be really, really high quality. So when you think about German cars, you think about high efficiency, high quality, good brand image, innovative products that are demanded across the world. So non-price competition is looking at the quality of the goods or services, or how innovative and creative and unique them products are. So what we know is that Britain has got good levels of international competitiveness in things like financial services and education. It's not because what we offer is cheap, but it's very, very competitive in terms of the quality of those services across the world. So, for example, when foreign people demand British universities, Oxford, Cambridge, etc., it's not because they're cheap, but it's because they're high quality. So, everyone, we can measure competitiveness in terms of price and non-price competition. Right, okay, now if we were measuring international competitiveness, we could be looking at the relative unit labour costs. So, in other words, what are the wage costs involved in producing a particular good or service? Now, for this, we've got to be looking at both productivity and wages. Now, these 2 numerical examples at the bottom of the page will hopefully explain this theory. So what I'm going to do in the first scenario on the left, I'm going to be looking at a world where we have two different economies. We've got country A and we've got country B. The wage rate per hour in country A is £20, whereas the wage rate in country B is £10. I'm then going to assume that both economies have got equal productivity levels. So the output per hour in countries A and B is 1 unit of output per hour. So all that means is in a factory in country A and country B, the average production line worker is producing 1 unit of output per hour. But then look at what that translates in terms of the unit labour costs. The labour cost involved in producing the product in country A will be £20, whereas in country B it would only be £10. So what you would argue based on that is that country B is more internationally competitive than country A. But this isn't the full story. We've then got to be thinking about productivity. Now in the scenario on the right hand side, what I've done, I've adjusted the productivity levels, the output per hour. So what I'm going to assume now then is that in country A, again, and country B, the wage rates are £20 per hour in country A and £10 per hour in country B. But this time, the output per hour in country A is 4, whereas in B it's only 1. So think about what that means. In a production line in country A, your average worker can produce 4 units of output per hour, whereas in country B it's only 1. Well, look at this now. Even though wage rates are higher in country A, the unit cost per unit of output is now £5. Think about what's happened. We're paying someone £20 per hour, but within that hour they can produce 4 units of output. Whereas in country B, the workers here are less productive. They can produce only 1 unit of output per hour. So for their £10 wage, they're only producing 1 unit of output. So that means it's costing £10 per unit of output produced to produce in country B. So even though wage rates are higher in country A, it will still be cheaper to produce those goods and services in A rather than B. So from what we would therefore assume then is that if we were looking at international competitiveness in terms of relative unit labour costs, your economy will have more competitors if wage rates are both low, but also your economy is very, very productive. You would therefore suggest that an economy with high wage rates but low productivity would have low levels of international competitiveness. Right, we could then think about international competitiveness by looking at relative non-wage costs and relative inflation rates. Now, when you produce products in an economy, you've got more to pay than the costs of workers. You've also got to be thinking about things such as regulation and environmental laws. So regulations could be things such as how many holidays staff are entitled to, the training that staff must have in the workplace, the pensions that people are entitled to. It could even be down to, the skills that people must have to work in those particular industries. But also, the environmental laws, how you've got to dispose of waste or what your emission levels must be. Now, clearly, the stronger the regulations in an economy, the less international competition you will have. If you've got lots of employee protection rights and environmental laws in your economy, that will significantly increase the cost of production. That will therefore mean that you lack international competitiveness. So if you've got relatively low non-wage costs, so you don't really offer any employment protection, you don't have environmental laws, it means that your firms have got low costs of production. So you'll become more price competitive. So it just shows everyone that it's a balancing act, really. We want to give people good rights in the workplace. We want to promote and protect the environment, but those laws could take away your international competitiveness. So it's a bit of a conflict that we've potentially got going on there. Now, another one is relative inflation rates. If over time your inflation rates are growing more or quicker than what they are in other economies across the world, then you will become less internationally competitive. So let's say, for example, in country A, inflation is 5% per year, whereas in country B, it's only 3%. It means that price levels in country A are growing quicker than what they are in country B. Also reduce your international competitiveness. Right, what I would now like to do is to think about the theory that we've been looking at. So you've got 3 different questions here. Again, if you can copy down these questions into your books, put down your answers. Now, when you're putting down your answers, don't just put down basic definitions. With B, for example, try to use examples. between price and non-price competition. When you're looking at C, again, chuck in some numbers to help you articulate your arguments for what will influence international competitiveness. Right, if you can now hit pause, put down your answers, and when you're ready, hit play, and we'll move on to the final part of this video. Right, everyone, now this bit should be relatively straightforward. We're looking at the impacts of global competitiveness. Now, if you are really internationally competitive, so that could be because of price or non-price reasons, then it will mean there's a high demand for your country's goods and services overseas. Well, the benefit of that will be that you will have an improved trade performance. So it's much more likely to have a trade surplus, and that will fuel export-led growth in your economy. Well, that will clearly lead to an outward shift in aggregate demand, and therefore create an increase in GDP. Hopefully that will increase GDP per capita, create lots of multiplier effects and animal spirits and more investment to take place, and also it will create jobs. So those export markets will create jobs, which will hopefully help reduce unemployment in your economy. You'd like to think as well that being internationally competitive will improve the government's finances. If it's encouraging economic growth and high demand for domestic goods and services, it means there's more corporation tax being paid. There's more people working in the economy because of these export markets and high domestic demand for domestic goods and services. You've got lots of income tax being paid due to lots of workers in the economy. So there's going to be some really, really good macroeconomic benefits. If I was thinking about digestive, this could lead to better economic development, because if it's improving government finances, you've got more funds available for healthcare, education. If there's jobs available, people are earning incomes they need to sustain good living standards. We know it's going to create growth and employment. It's going to improve trade, and it will hopefully as well improve government finances on the back of that. There are, however, some drawbacks of it. So if you are very competitive, then we know that a current account surplus, if it's huge against other economies across the world, it could lead to retaliation. So you might see other economies imposing protectionist policies on your economy. Well, that is an external shock, which can have a big detrimental impact on your economy. So you're almost becoming very reliant on foreign demand for your goods and services. If they suddenly decide to block them, then it could have a big detrimental impact on economic growth and unemployment in your economy. But also as well, if you've got export-led growth, that high growth in aggregate demand over time, it could lead to lots of demand pull inflation in your economy. And that could eventually take away your international competitiveness. Now, overall, everyone, I think we would argue, though, that being internationally competitive is really, really important. It's a good thing. And the way that we would improve our competitiveness is to use supply-side policies. So you might look to ways to improve productivity. This could be through more immigration, which could tackle skill gaps and labour shortages and bring down wage rates. You could even look towards upgrading human capital, so workers are more skilled, which means they can become more productive. You might look to incentivise firms to invest into capital, which could lead again to workers having better machinery to work with, which again makes them more productive. We could upgrade infrastructure, so firms have got better road networks and other transport links to help them produce things quicker and more efficiently. Right, everyone, now just to end this video, I'd like to think about these two questions then. So A, outline a range of macroeconomic benefits of being internationally competitive. Try and link it to digestive. Use ADAS diagrams to explain why these are benefits that exist because you are internationally competitive. And then B, opposite. What are the problems of being internationally competitive? So again, could you use ADAS to explain it? Could you link it to digestive? So guys, hit pause, put down your answers. Once you've put down your answers, you are finished with this video. So thank you very much for watching.